Hello, 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 everyone. Hi, how's everyone doing? Hope the Trailblazing families and the Trailblazing families to be are having a good day so far. I have a wonderful guest today, Jessie Roselin from San Francisco, my old stomping grounds. I used to live there for several years after university. I don't know if I told you that before, Jessie, but welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Jessie is the founder of Tutor Corps, and you're the head of Pacific Preparatory. So two organizations which have been around for quite a while. So Jessie, give us a little bit about your background, because you mentioned that you have world schooled when you were little. True?
Yeah, well, I'm really glad to be here. I think a lot of my inspiration for starting Pacific Preparatory School and Tutor Corps, frankly, came out of my world schooling experience. I think I started traveling with my family when I was just little, 1 year old kind of thing. And then when I was 6, my dad got a Fulbright to India. And so we lived in Cochin for a year when I was 6 years old. So that really kicked things off. And then we traveled. He basically taught international environmental law and policy. And so we would travel around the world. So we'd either spend, it was, as you know, more challenging to spend school time abroad. So we'd often go during the summer to Australia, Turkey, China, Indonesia, where we'd actually go and live there for 2 or 3 months in a spot where he would teach at a university, and we would be kind of living abroad, embedded in that community. But then again, when I was 15, I was studying at a private school called Marin Academy in the Bay Area. And my second semester of my freshman year, we just moved back to India and to Bangalore this time. And I basically did my whole second semester of freshman year in India.
Wow.
And this is before email and all that stuff. So we would be FedExing, they'd FedEx science tests from San Francisco to Bangalore, and I'd take the tests and send them back. And
wait, so you were not going to an international school or a private school when you were in India?
No, I just did, basically we set up it was just ad hoc. We just talked to the school and said, hey, can Jessie still just do the work, independent study, while we're in India for these 4 months? So the teachers were like, sure, we'll just, he'll read Hamlet, he'll read, he'll do the world history program, he'll do his algebra 1, all that stuff. And so I did it independently, and we can talk about some of the challenges I experienced with that as well.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I do meet families who do that. They still stay with the school, whatever school they have back in their home country, and then they'll travel maybe for just a year. They're doing a gap year, and they'll try to get advice from the school, or they'll kind of stick with their curriculum. And I think some of that is good, because obviously if you're going back to that school system, it's a little easier to transition back. But also, you're out in the world, you should be learning about whatever country you're in versus American history or the Civil War, or whatever the school is trying to have you learn that year. I mean, of course, math and reading is good to keep up on, but yeah. So what were the challenges when you were doing that?
Well, I think I was naturally, this is something I see overall when I'm looking at homeschooling, because I've been involved in the homeschooling world for 20 years now. And what I see is, a lot of the work that kids do is what I see more as independent study, where the kids are, like myself, were given a book, you read the book, and you write the essay or whatever analysis you have, or take the exam, right? And in these cases, you are using your brain to learn the material, but you're not actually being taught. You're not being taught by a teacher. So when it came to using my prior knowledge to read, say, Macbeth, I could read Macbeth and then see it's write an essay on Macbeth. I could write the essay. And honestly, what was kind of crazy is the kids back home took 3 to 4 weeks to do that. And I did it in maybe 2 days. Day 1, I read Macbeth. Day 2, I wrote the essay. And that was a month of English. And then the rest of the week we went out, like you're talking about, being in the culture. We were out, school was I could do school in like 2 hours a day,
Right, right.
or I would just stack it up and do 6 hours on a Monday, and then the rest we'd be traveling to the
Cool.
Taj Mahal or wherever
Yeah.
we were going, right? So it
Awesome.
was kind of amazing that way. What was challenging is when it came to chemistry. My
Yeah.
parents didn't teach chemistry, and I was just, how do I learn chemistry on my own?
Yeah, because you
That's
don't have
really
the equipment.
don't know the equipment, and even just learning about like, sodium chloride, Na plus Cl minus, like learning about how the electrons bond and all these things, like I don't know this stuff, right? So that's where Tutor Core and Pacific Preparatory come in, where we do global online learning. And so we can have those tutors just plug in and actually teach. So that's, I think, the difference between the kids being able to kind of like go self-paced asynchronous learning with many of these programs where they're able to just kind of digest the material on their own versus having an active teacher involved with the content.
Right. Okay, well, that's awesome. Tell me how Pacific Preparatory started, because you said it was in-person tutoring, correct? And also, what's the difference between Pacific Preparatory and Tutor Core?
Yeah, very good questions, Liz. Okay, so I started Tutor Core and Pacific Preparatory 20 years ago. I started Tutor Core to provide one-on-one in-person tutoring back in 2002. And then right away, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. A lot of folks just started saying, hey, we're, homeschooling my kids home with XYZ, like they have a, physical illness, mental health challenges, whatever it is, can you come and homeschool them? So then all of a sudden the tutoring, I would tutor after school, but then during the day, I would go to families' homes and work with their kids during the day. So these are families that needed schooling at home, but the parents didn't want to provide, didn't want to or weren't able to provide that instruction themselves. So they hired me to do that.
So the
and
kids
so then
were
I built
homeschoolers with a tutor. They were, I mean, you were,
yes,
okay.
exactly. And I was the tutor.
Okay, and I was wondering if you worked with public and private school kids after school, or like the homeschool kids or whatever. Sometimes kids, they're very involved in sports. They're trying to be Olympic athletes or whatever, so they don't have the time to go to traditional school. So you've kind of helped all of those kinds of kids, right?
Yes, and yes. All those kids, public school, private school, Olympic athletes, actors, kids with learning differences, kids that are homebound, kids, all kinds of kids, all kinds of learners, all kinds of schools can come to us because it's one-on-one. We accommodate everybody.
Okay. So when did you start doing this online? Was it because of COVID or before?
We were fortunate in that we actually started about 3 years prior. So we started, we started in about 2017, where we were doing 15 to 20% online as families were starting to travel the world. And we would also follow these families so they could move from, they're going through Germany, then they're going to Tahiti, and we just basically, because we're providing online instruction, we can go with their kids as they travel the world. So that started pre-COVID.
What do you mean? We would go with them or online?
Online.
Okay, got it.
And then when COVID started,
there are traveling tutors.
I know. Yes, I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
When COVID happened,
and we did actually. We actually did that too.
Oh.
We had like a family from Java, a family that lived in Hillsborough, California, would go spend 3 months in Java during the summer, and they had a child with autism, and we were providing tutoring instruction during the school year. And so they said, can the tutor just come with us? And so I said, sure. And we talked to the tutor, and they flew the tutor over, and the tutor spent 3 months with the kid, keeping them up to speed academically while they were in Java. Amazing. So, we do that. I mean, basically, I'm an outside the box thinker with like solution-oriented approach for education, like building whatever you need to build. So that's kind of like my whole philosophy. But we started with, before COVID, with providing some of this online, and that helped us work out all the kinks. So we were on Zoom before everyone else was on Zoom. And let me tell you, Zoom got so much better when an extra like billion people started using it.
Wow.
So like we already were prepared. So we were able to pivot from about 20% online to 100% online. And that also grew the school because so many people were interested in Pacific Preparatory when they really didn't have other options available to them during COVID.
Okay, tell me what's the difference between Tutor Core and Pacific Preparatory? One of them is accredited and the other
Yes.
one's tutoring.
So Pacific Preparatory is a fully accredited K-12 school, right? So you get your full transcript, you get basically we're UC approved courses. We have AP courses for college. We have, all of that. It's just like a typical traditional independent school, except that it's all one-to-one, live, and custom built courses. So instead of us taking a book off the shelf and the kids like falling asleep because they're so bored and the teachers just like go through it, we custom build it according to each child's specific learning style, right? Their interests, their learning style, their circumstances. We have a full-time curriculum specialist that meets with each family, each student when they come in. We do assessments. We meet the student exactly where they're at. It is the best education you can get. And it is amazing. I had my own kids do it during COVID. And like my first grader learned to read through his Pack Prep course. Like my daughter did 4th grade math. I mean, it was just awesome to see them thrive so significantly.
I want to talk to you about the different ages because you're saying K through 12, and my kids have done online learning, group learning, and one of my girls has ADHD, so she wasn't focusing, but she also had some one-on-one math tutoring, and that worked better because she only had one person who was totally focused on her and she was totally focused on him, and they were using the whiteboard and all of that kind of stuff. So I see the effectiveness of it. And obviously it costs more to do one-on-one versus a group lesson. But kindergarten, really? You have kindergarten students, 1st grade, 2nd grade? Most of your students older.
No. We actually have more K-5 students than any other demographic in our school. And I was surprised. I was a little skeptical. But my own kids were at that age because I now have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 5-year-old. So think 3 years ago, right? They're going to be 7, 5, and 2. So I was right in that demographic myself. And I was skeptical. I thought, like especially my young one has speech apraxia. And so he was doing speech therapy online and it really wasn't working. And, it just wasn't as good as the in-person, and he would just, be very hard. We need the parent right next to him. So I was skeptical going into it. And then I was blown away at how effective it was. And our biggest challenge is talking to parents who have been burnt by the group online experience during COVID, and us saying, this is totally different. It's totally different. And we have so many kids with ADD, ADHD, any kind of attention issues. And what's so cool is we're able to make it so interactive. We actually send materials to the home. We have doc cams that on both sides, so the kids can be doing manipulatives, they can be having their book under there, they can be doing projects, handwriting, math, whatever. The kid has a doc cam, the teacher has a doc cam. So it's almost like you're the teacher looking over the kid's shoulder because you see their face live like this, and you see their work on 2 screens. So we have really worked out all the details, and we make it's sort of this hybrid model of like sending materials to the kids, or having, if you're in Egypt, we have you buy the materials there. We actually do like chemistry in like at the table. Like it's amazing.
Wow. Okay. How long are the classes?
It's custom. So if we look at, again, back to the difference between Tutor Core and Pacific Preparatory, because Pacific Preparatory is accredited, we are running, each course is a fully accredited course that's 30 hours of instruction per course, right? So that's what the kid needs to do to get that, to get their transcript to be fully approved. Now, if you don't really care about that, and this is, high schoolers tend to care more about that than like if you're in K-8. So you can also go with Tutor Core. Tutor Core is the most flexible option because there are no hourly requirements. And that we can plug in anywhere. You can stop, you can start at any time. Pack Prep, you can also start at any time. We have rolling admissions, but it is going to be, we are going to build a course for you. So you're going to be moving through that course. The Tutor Core part is more like help with whatever you're learning. So in my case of going to India and needing to learn chemistry, then the tutor could just come and help me with whatever content I have. Pack Prep, we also build the content.
Okay. All right. So it depends on the age and what they're learning. You help create a customized curriculum for them. You don't have anything standardized. It depends on, you know, what their goals are and their learning style and all of that. Are most of the courses, or I don't know if you call them courses, but are they mostly academic? Do you have any enrichment type things? I mean, or because, you know, Out School has like tons of enrichment classes, not as much of the academic stuff. They have some. What is your focus of Pacific Preparatory? I mean, is your goal to get your kids ready for university?
I wouldn't say the goal is always to get the kids ready for university. I mean, I would say the majority of families do want their kids to get ready for university, but some families have different goals depending on where they're, you know, who their kids are. And so in some cases, that's not their goal. Their goal is to develop life skills, for example. And so we can look at courses for that. But overall, we are primarily an academic institution, right? So do we have PE? Yes. Can we have yoga for PE? Can we have art for PE, art classes, language classes? If you think of any kind of typical independent or private school that has all those things, that's what we have. So if you want those kinds of the classes that are the language classes, the art classes, the yoga, dance, those kinds of things, we can create those as much as we can in a virtual environment. And now that you see what folks are doing all over the world, you can see that there is, you know, flexibility in terms of teaching yoga or teaching dance online.
Right.
Now, what we also do is we talk with the parents about, you know, the key is also to have the support of the academic teacher or tutor with Tutor Core. And that can provide structure and stability while you're world schooling. And then, like you were talking about, accessing local resources. Why would you take an art course from us online when you can take an art course out of Bali locally? Do that. So we would talk to the parents about like brainstorming how to find some of those resources locally, and you would too, to be, if we were collaborating, say like, what can you build in terms of local experience and what can you have online? And so usually the online is things that you can't access locally. Like let's say you have a kid that is struggling with dyslexia. We have reading specialists that can keep your kid up to speed and even advancing further than they would if they were in a typical school. They're actually going to be accelerating in their reading development while you're traveling. How cool is that?
That is awesome. How many students do you have with Pacific Preparatory and Tutor Core?
With Pack Prep, we have 72 kids currently, and that's always, you know, fluctuating a little bit as people come in and out. And with Tutor Core, we have about, I don't know, like 350 right now. I mean, I've tutored probably like 18,000 kids by now over the 20 years. Like we work with a lot of kids.
And how many tutors and teachers are you working with on your staff or contracting?
Yeah, most of them are employees. Well, it's actually about half and half now. It's been shifting because the laws in California are a little different, but we have tutors and teachers all over. And actually well, let me stop there. We have 182 teachers. So that gives us a lot of flexibility to work with all kinds of kids, the kids that need AP chemistry, the kids that need a reading specialist. We have a whole special education team that provides special education, right? Kids with IEPs or whatever needs they have. And that's very different from a lot of the schools out there that aren't able to provide that kind of resource. Now, the other thing that's so cool in terms of, this is kind of an offshoot comment, but for families that are looking to how do they make money while they're traveling, some of our teachers are living abroad also. They are in Costa Rica providing teaching for Pack Prep wherever the kids are moving.
Sure, sure. I've met so many online teachers in my travels.
Yeah.
Let's talk about tuition and pricing, depending on if it's Pack Prep versus Tutor Corp.
Yeah, so with Pack Prep, we basically benchmark the pricing to any kind of independent school, and specifically in metropolitan areas like the San Francisco Bay Area. So it's a la carte, $5,000 per course per semester. So it's basically $10,000 per course per year. So if you took 4 courses, it'd be $40,000 a year. 5 courses, it'd be $50,000 a year. Right.
Wow.
And that is about the same price that you would pay for those courses at a brick and mortar school.
Right. But the brick and
Now,
mortar has overhead that you don't have as much.
yes, absolutely, which is why we pay our teachers so well.
Okay.
So a lot of the schools that you look at that have brick and mortar, they're really bringing down those rates to pay the teachers really low. They're not paying prep time. They're not paying for meeting time. They're not giving them resources. Basically, we save all that money from the brick and mortar and we put it to the teachers and the support. So I have 10 full-time administrators that provide support for the teachers. So the teachers need anything, boom, 2-day shipping, Amazon, you got your resources right there. Like we are all about, like in some cases, we're like the FedEx of schooling. Like we'll just like send you the resources. We'll be there. We'll provide the support. We have the learning specialists. We have everybody on board to provide that. And that's why our teachers love working with us. Like coming from any other schooling environment, it's like heaven because they're given so much resources and it moves so quickly.
Right, right. Okay, so you're really focusing on the high quality teachers, you pay them well, so obviously your tuition's pretty, up there. I'm guessing, your clientele are entrepreneurs, highly paid parents, and they want the best for their kids. And then Tutor Court, how do you do the pricing for that?
Yeah, Tutor Core is a little different. I mean, Tutor Core is hourly, so it's about $160 an hour, and it's just pay as you go. You can mix and match, develop whatever you want. There are no contracts. It's just what is the best thing for your family. You can dial it up. You can add more hours. Then you're like, oh, we're going to this country where we're going to be actually at this international school for X amount of time. We're going to stop the tutoring. We're going to start the tutoring. It's totally flexible. And I would say, it's the best schooling you can get, period. Like it's based on this traditional, it's like the Oxford tutorial method of having the best teacher with the child to provide the best educational experience. It is costly. And so I say to parents, you can mix and match. Let's say your child is just thriving and they love just reading and writing and they don't really need that kind of like specialized instruction in those areas. Do a course from Outschool. Do, buy your own curriculum. Do something with another kind of online school that's more asynchronous that the kids can just learn on their own. Have a book club. Do all that kind of stuff that doesn't cost, Outschool costs are like $20 each. It's very easy and much more affordable. And then for the course where they're really struggling, then you plug in Pack Prep, and that's where you get the real value add.
Right, right. Okay, awesome. So tell us about some of your Worldschooling families that work with you. Do you have any stories, or can you describe kind of how they work with you?
Yeah, that's fun. So, because I started in, I graduated from Stanford and I taught and teach for America in the San Francisco Bay Area. I started Tutor Core and Pack Prep in the Bay Area. So we have a lot of families coming out of Silicon Valley. We have a lot of families that are working with tech companies that decided to travel the world, and they also have the flexibility to work remotely. So what is so fun is looking at these families, and logistically, the challenge is lining up the time zones. That is always like a huge spreadsheet. But it's awesome to look where they're going and then to help prepare the kids and learn about the country they're going ahead of time, and then build in the lessons in a relevant way, right? So let's say they're going to Italy first, and they're gonna go to, let's say Florence, and then
going there in a month.
Oh, awesome. Okay, well, I was there last summer for a month, and I would be happy to talk with you about any like special things. So anyways, but that's beside the point. So you're looking at, so we do like a preview of Italy globally. Like maybe we also look at the Italian language. Are they interested in learning Italian at all? We could build in it like a language course there. We could also have, of course, the history, all the humanities components, right? So we're going to have the history of Italy in general, and then the history of Florence in particular. The Medici family. Well, let's talk about the Medici family. Well, let's talk about Michelangelo.
Exactly.
Where are the kids at? Can they read The Agony and the Ecstasy? That's a pretty big book. Are they in 7th grade? I read it in 7th grade. Could they read? Can in a 6th grader, 8th grader? Like, let's have the literature that they're reading be around where they're going. So they're getting all this background information, which is going to make them access the culture that they're in a more meaningful way.
Awesome. Okay. So do you know what percentage of your students are world schoolers? I mean, is it a small percentage? Or is it growing?
It varies. Like during COVID, when COVID was at its height, it was probably more like 40%. And now it's dropped to about like 20%.
So the family just decided to leave not only the Bay Area, but the country.
Yeah.
Or where you have clients all over. You have students all over because you're online.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. All over the US, all over the world. Okay. And some of them are either, on the move. So they're in this place for 2 or 3 weeks and then they move to another place. Others are more living abroad. So they'll actually move and stay at a place for say 6 months or a year.
Yeah, and they don't want to enroll their kids. It's a hassle. I've enrolled my kids into schools, and even if you're only there for 3, 4, 5 months, you have to pay the registration fee. You might have to buy uniforms, all that kind of stuff. So it is, and it's hard to go to a local school here, then a local school there, and it's not very consistent. We have 3 or 4 people watching, so I just want to call out to everyone. Hey, do you have any questions? If so, please type them in the comment. And Jesse's here to answer your education questions, your tutoring questions. Yeah, that's awesome. And so you have worldschooled your kids a bit. You want to talk about that a little?
Yeah, so my wife and I went this past summer for 3 months, and that was our sort of foray into traveling with the kids. And we were thinking about doing a year. And then with COVID and all the changes, we thought, let's just start with 3 months. Let's see how this goes. It's not like we were baby stepping into it with like a 2-week trip. Like 3 months was still a big deal. Yeah. But we decided to do it over the summer to have less disruption in terms of schooling. And I think that's a great way for families to baby step into world schooling, is that they could try it. First they try it maybe over a 2-week break. They go to a place that's fairly close. They see how they like it. They try that 2 weeks. Then maybe they try 1 to 3 months over the summer, and they can do that. And then from there, they could, this is if they're 100% sure they want a world school, they could just jump right into it. But it's also nice if you have little kids to see kind of build up a little bit slowly. Yeah. It was pretty intense to take like all 3 kids. We jumped into it. First, we went to Bali. And so we flew from San Francisco, 16 hours to Qatar, 8-hour layover, 4 hours from Qatar to Bali. Yes, I know. Because our Singapore Airlines flight got canceled. And so then we had to rebook on Qatar and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Again, flexibility. Yes. Got to be flexible. And our Singapore, I got an amazing flight. It was like, $1,000 from San Francisco to Bali. Then they canceled the flight. And then when I went to rebook it, it was $6,000 per person. And then Qatar Airways was back down to like $1,200. So we had to ditch.
I was going to say that traveling in the summer, I know that's when people, I can travel, I guess, when they're going to school, but the prices go way up. So we try to travel in the off season.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's a real benefit. But with the family, it was really interesting because, the kids, they got acclimated to these long haul flights.
Okay,
Like they
good.
got acclimated. They were like, oh, sure, 16 hours to Qatar. Like that was rough. Now, when we fly to DC for a 5 hour trip, they're like,
No big
nothing, no problem.
exactly.
Um, we got them acclimated to just like traveling overall, the luggage, the suitcases, who's carrying what do we need to bring, all these different things, right? Like where are their water bottles, just and the anxiety for the little kids too is like, oh, this is, and for the adults, is like, okay, how is this going to go? And so the more we do it and baby step into it, the easier it became. So by the end of the trip, when we were in, so we went Indonesia, lived there abroad for just like lived there. We rented a place for the month. And then we went to Italy in the Tuscany region. We're there for a month, and then went to Germany for a month. But by the end of Germany, the kids were like totally dialed in and were really, their independence, their ability to problem solve, like it just went way up. The challenge I really found was to go from my wife's a physician, and I am at a school at Pacific Preparatory and run Tutor Corps. So to go from two professional working parents to then we weren't working during the summer, and we were two full-time parents taking care of our kids, and as a family being together 24/7.
Yeah.
No nannies, no childcare, no nothing, was a huge shift for us. And to be, how do we entertain our 5-year-old? What's the balance? What's the balance for the kids to like get them out doing things, learning about the culture, experiencing things, to having some downtime? And it's not like we are not the family we're not on vacation.
Right.
We're not going around to see all the sites.
Yeah.
Like we're not like, oh,
it's a lifestyle.
Yeah, we're living there. We're learning about it. But so just thinking about what kind of structure is going to benefit the family.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I think that one of the biggest challenges was the social, like our kids missing their friends. Because, and this is, you mentioned Boundless, and you mentioned, I know of like Working Without Borders, other programs where you have a community of other kids and other families. I think that was a challenge for us, even in just the 3 months that we were abroad, how to make friends, right? And so when thinking about like, we were renting, like we'd rent an apartment, but there wasn't a built-in community. So one of the highlights was at the Green School in Bali. There was an international summer camp, and it was a 5-day international summer camp. And so we took the kids to Ubud and we dropped them off for the day at the summer camp. And there they met all these other kids from all over the world. And so that was a real highlight, because they're like embedded in this community that has the structure. And so I would say for parents thinking about how to maintain that social interaction, especially depending on how old their kids are. If their kids are, 1 year old, then they're going to be, that's not that important. But when they're 10, that's really important.
Very important. Yeah. No, I'm at a World School Hub right now. It's for 3 months, and it's our second winter here. We're skiing and hanging out with all these other families from all over the world. So I highly recommend World School Hub. So in the future, if you need any World School help, I'm now a World School coach. So reach out to me. If any of your students are planning to do it, let me know, because I love helping people get ready to travel abroad for extended periods. And again, I'm interviewing World School service providers, education service providers like Pacific Preparatory and Tutor Corps, to give everyone options of how they can educate their kids. Because I think some people think that they have to homeschool their kids. I met somebody today at that social get together, and they're from the UK, and they have a 3-year-old. So they said, we're not world schooling yet. And I said, you're world schooling with a 3-year-old. It's okay. You don't have to be in school to world school. And so they started asking, like, how do you do this? How have you been doing this for 6 years? Are you homeschooling your kids? I said, no, I've tried this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. And I said, all of those were not me homeschooling them. There's other options out there, like online tutors, which is great, or like the Green School, or these World School Hubs, or nannies. I mean, so many options. Yesterday, I interviewed Traveling Circus. So if you haven't seen that video, watch it, because it's a group of 5 to 7 families traveling together with a teacher and an assistant. So they move around the world together in community. So so many innovative solutions for families like ours. So that is wonderful. I'm just seeing if anyone has any questions. Jesse, is there anything important that I forgot to ask you? Is there anything else you want to talk about what Pacific Preparatory or Tutor Corps has to offer? I mean, I did the other day put together a list of tutoring companies, and there's thousands of individual tutors out there, and they post all over Facebook. But I counted about 25 to 30 like companies that have like multiple tutors, and there's quite a lot. How do you feel that you guys differentiate from, you know, all the other companies out there? Because there's such a variety.
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, for parents that are really, you know, if you're really price conscious, if you're on a budget, you are definitely going to save a lot of money if you have the time and energy to vet tutors on your own and hire them yourself, right? So if you have the time and energy to do that and the knowledge to do that, like you have some, you know what you're looking for, then by all means do that, right? I think the companies come in, and you can say that for anything. Like if you can paint your house, why would you hire someone to paint your house? Like paint your house yourself.
Yeah.
If you can hire a tutor yourself. But if you want to go with a company, you want to go with people. I mean, I think it just depends honestly on the sort of the type of company you're looking for. If you want group tutoring, you know, then you can go for the type of tutoring company that offers group tutoring. If you want really the highest level of education, then you're going to go towards people like us, like Tutor Corps, like Pacific Preparatory. And I think that's what you're looking at in terms of the bar. Like if you look at, I don't want to throw any names out there, but they're like huge companies that are online that just basically are tech companies that are just scaled up, just kind of like, I don't know if you've heard of like TaskRabbit or any of these kinds of, or like Uber. It's just like, we don't really do much vetting. Like Uber doesn't really vet their drivers.
Right. The marketplace.
The marketplace creates all that, the reviews and ratings.
Outschool, which a lot of worldschoolers and homeschoolers love, is a marketplace. I mean, they do a criminal background check, but I think that's it. And then they just rely on like how many the ratings, you know, how many stars that the families provide, you know, but there's no vetting.
Right. And 15 years ago, I had the opportunity to get into that. And I said, no, like, I don't want to be in just a marketplace. I want to actually be the concierge service that provides the best educators in the world. Like, we don't want to just have like, oh, you come to us and like, you can just select. No, we are selecting for you. That's what you're paying for. You're paying for a premium service where we're going to get you the best educator possible in the exact subject you want for your child's learning style, right? So that's why it's a premium. So I think when you are looking for, you have to kind of tune into what you want for your child and what your child's needs are. Like, are my kids in Pac Prep full time? No, they're actually in public school full time because we live in Mill Valley in the San Francisco Bay Area, and that's what's best for them in their social group. But then we augment with Pac Prep, we augment with Tutor Corps, and that's what works for them. Now that could change over time as they grow. If their learning style, I mean, my kids are young, we might learn that they need more specialized instruction. But it's so, I think when you're looking at tutoring companies, it's just like any other service out there. You can go for the marketplace approach, or you can go for kind of the concierge approach.
That's awesome. Mill Valley is wonderful. I love it there. So when you find a tutor, do they need to be certified teachers, or you try to find people who are specialists and experts at their topic?
You know, both. So especially when we get into high school, we're going to need that, like, the PhD in biology is going to be teaching the AP biology course. They might not have a teaching credential, but they're, graduated from Harvard and have a graduate degree from Stanford and blah, 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 blah. And they're a great teacher. So they do that. Now, in other cases, we have the fully credentialed special education teacher that's working with the third grader. So because we have so many teachers, we're able to mix and match like that.
That's wonderful. Well, we have a quiet audience today, but thank you so much, Jesse. I thought a couple of people would ask some questions, but I guess the two of us handled it on our own. So I will later on download this video and put it on YouTube if you want to share it. Thank you so much, Jesse, and I hope you have a good rest of the day. And thank you.
Thank you, Liz. I get so excited talking about world schooling with you, and I would love to be where you are with the hub skiing during the day, and that sounds amazing.
Come meet us. I mean, you work online, right?
Absolutely. I will try.
Yeah, you can be a digital nomad just like us.
Perfect.
Hey, thanks for watching. This is Lizz Quain with Trailblazing Families. My twins and I have been traveling in world schooling for over 6 years, and I'm happy to share about our experiences. Make sure to check out the other videos on this channel. I do have a playlist of all the other interviews of other world schooling families and service providers. We're all happy to share our information and wisdom about how to best live this world schooling, digital nomad, and family travel lifestyle. If you're new to world schooling and need a bit of help, I do have a super comprehensive 12-week program on how to travel extensively as a family and how to world school, how to educate your kids. There's many different ways to do it. So reach out to me and schedule a no obligation Zoom meeting so we can have a quick chat and see if my program is a good fit for you. Thanks and happy trails.